Welcome to rSlash Prorevenge, where OP ruins the life of his evil stepmother. Our next Reddit post is from Florida Trash Burner. Years back, I worked as the IT director for a small brokerage firm. These types of places try to run lean, so I was also the only IT personnel. I took the job, but I was a bit underqualified if I'm being truthful. The reason they gave it to me was because I was young and they thought that they could underpay me. They were right. It was $10,000 more than I had ever made in my life. I had a terrible job at the time, so I took it for the resume title step, and honestly, it did work out as a good resume builder. I struggled and had to do an endless amount of learning on the job, but I made huge improvements. The day-to-day was sketchy there. We only had 5 employees supporting the 4 partners and the 70-plus brokers. Brokers didn't really work there. They rented a desk for a percentage, so they didn't care how many brokers were on staff. There were a couple of gyms, but ultimately we were understaffed because they looked at full-time employees like we were stealing from them. They made us work long hours and work weekends with no overtime. Everyone was either underpaid or an overpaid buddy of someone important. Even worse were the partners. The 4 partners were constantly doing shady stuff. One partner would take money from broker commissions and go to Vegas with it. If he lost the money, we're talking like $100,000 per trip. He would tell the brokers there's a hold from the bank and their commissions are coming in slow. Another broker asked me straight up to hide an affair from his wife. Another had me come to his house on company time and install some audio and video equipment after hours without paying me. When I came on board, they were 100 years out of date on technology. I helped them get up to date. I made dozens of improvements and everyone was pretty happy. All the brokers and employees loved the improvements. Then the partners started doing some really sketchy stuff. They had me open employee exchange mailboxes and run mail queries on email addresses. Turns out these were lawyer emails between their lawyers and their clients, which are confidential. They had me do this all the time for just about anyone. I would have to collect it all, then they would fire them and keep their clients. This is illegal, which I didn't know at the time. They somehow convinced a lending company to merge with them. It was a totally different crew. They were nice, honest, and really customer-focused. I made friends with one of the leading agents. He helped me search for houses online. He was the nicest guy. His wife and her dad ran the firm until the merger. I found out that the partners' plan was to just fire everyone from the new firm and just steal their name and the client list. They only planned to be merged for a few months, long enough to learn their business. I also found out that they were going to fire me now that the IT was up to date. Guess how I found out? During an email query that one of the partners had me do against another partner. So, over the weekend, the only nice people at this terrible office were getting locked out of their office, and I was getting fired now that I had essentially made myself redundant in their mind. Well, let me tell you about the red folder. The red folder was locked in my file cabinet. It contained every password for admin access on every system. It also contained the fire plan, or the downtime plan of every system in the company. My boss didn't really understand why we needed one, and he never really looked at it. Well, I called my friend who worked for the other firm who was about to get fired. I told him to head to my office and grab all my files and computers because technically their firm owned them anyways. I told him about the partner's plan to change the locks over the weekend. I told him that I was quitting and not to mention me. He said he understood and thanked me. I changed the only other administrator password that my boss had access to. Then I shredded the red folder. I emailed my resignation. They begged me to come back. They offered me a 30% pay bump. They said that they were shocked that I was so disloyal. I heard years later from a secretary who worked there at the time that it took them 4 months to get the systems under control again. They ended up hiring a contractor. I heard that it cost them a full year of my salary. Our next Reddit post is from a quiet borderline. I was an only child to 2 loving parents. Mom had a difficult pregnancy and an even harder labor. It was so bad that her doctors advised that she never try it again. Because my dad didn't want his wife to die, my dad got a vasectomy that was successful. I was sad that I didn't have any siblings, but I had a happy childhood until I was a young adult. When I was in the middle of college, Mom was diagnosed with stage 4 HCSOC, which is high-grade serous ovarian cancer. It's the most aggressive form of ovarian cancer, and Mom's older sister and Mom both died from it. We knew that our odds weren't good. I don't know what Dad was thinking, I really don't, but he started an affair with his coworker, a woman just a few years older than me. The coworker started integrating herself into my and my mom's life. She'd go shopping for us, keep the house in order, help me with homework, and even sit with Mom when Mom was going through chemo and Dad and I weren't there. And no, I had no clue at all. I just thought this coworker was being kind to a family going through hard times. Mom fought. She fought hard, but the odds just weren't in her favor. One day, I was visiting her in hospice and we were playing Chutes and Ladders. Mom got real quiet and then she told me, "You know your dad isn't planning to reverse his vasectomy, right?" I was surprised, wondering what she was talking about, so I said, "Yeah, I know. Why?" Mom just looked at me and said, "I think you'd best keep that in mind." We continued playing, and when I left for the night, I kissed her and she said, "You'll be fine on your own." She died that night. I believe she knew that she was going to die that night and didn't want to scare me. Once again, the coworker was right by our side. She helped us plan the funeral, brought us food, helped us around the house, and slowly started moving her things into our place. It was like putting a frog in a pot of water and having the temperature raised. It was slow. It was gradual. A year or so later, she had completely moved herself in and was part of our lives. I don't remember what made me suspicious enough to start digging, but start digging I did. I learned the affair began shortly after Mom's diagnosis. I was sickened, furious, and saddened. I took out my cell phone, ready to confront Dad and coworker with this knowledge, but something else struck me. You see, during one of the coworker's visits, she mentioned to Mom and me that she wished to have children with her fiancé. My mom knew the affair was going on, and she trusted me to spill the beans. But I wanted to twist the knife further. As a result, I decided to play the long game. It was a gamble, one that had a good chance of not playing off. But it was a gamble I was willing to make. I kept my mouth shut. I watched as my dad and the coworker courted, got engaged, and married 3 years later. I squealed with delight when they announced their engagement to me, and I wore a proud smile on their wedding day and made a toast at the reception. I even took extra steps to hide the test results from Dad's urologist in such a way that the coworker couldn't find it, but Dad would. Believe me, I was internally screaming. I wanted the world to know that they had hurt Mom and me during my mother's darkest hours. I got dangerously close to saying something several times, but I said nothing, knowing the payoff would be worth it. Time passed and we played happy family. I got married to my awesome husband and had kids. My dad and my coworker played doting grandparents, but I knew from the pained look on the coworker's face that she was bemoaning her empty nest. Just as I was beginning to give up hope, the day came. The coworker and I had started the tradition of getting together for coffee shortly after Mom's death. We would talk girl things. Again, as I was internally screaming. We would laugh, cry, love, live. That sort of thing. This time, the coworker was sad and sullen. I could tell that she had been crying. I asked what was wrong. I couldn't believe my ears when I heard why. She had been struggling to get pregnant for years, but assumed that it was stress from work. Then her periods started coming fewer and farther between. She decided to go to the doctor and find out why. It turned out she was entering perimenopause and her chances of successfully getting pregnant had dwindled. The doctor told her, in essence, her childbearing years were over. As I crooned sympathetic noises, the coworker said, "It doesn't make any sense. We tried so hard to have kids, but I wasn't able to get pregnant. I don't know why." It was then that I knew that it was time. "You mean Dad didn't tell you?" I said. "Didn't tell me what?" she asked. I was fighting every chance to smile as I tried playing the "it's not my right to tell" and "I can't believe he didn't tell you" cards until she practically begged me. I should have won an Oscar for my performance. I told her about the vasectomy and that Dad had no intention of reversing it. You should have seen the coworker. She completely deflated like a balloon. Her shoulders slumped, she bowed her head, and she sobbed in her hands. I wanted to rejoice. I wanted to rub her face in it. I knew that would make me look like the bad guy. So I hugged her and rubbed her back, telling her that Dad was horrible for not telling her, that she deserved a different outcome, and that he completely wasted her time. Again, I was fighting to not smile. When she left, I told her I would always be there for her, but I knew that she wasn't going to be a part of my life anymore. Why would she? I was the daughter of the man who betrayed her. Once she left and I was alone, I wept with joy and relief that it paid off, but also deep sorrow that Mom hadn't been there to see it. That was the last time that I saw her talk to the coworker. A few weeks later, my dad called me in a fury. The coworker had packed her bags and left, slapping him with divorce papers. She yelled at him for not being honest with her that he had had a vasectomy that he had no intention of reversing, that he knew she wanted kids and that she had wasted all of her childbearing years, and that he had left it to me to tell her. He then said, "How could you do that to us? We loved you." I then said in a cold tone, "You and Mom did a good job teaching me how to keep secrets." I hung up and that was it. I never spoke to him again either. Last I heard, he and his coworker were divorced, and everyone shunned him because of him keeping a secret. I know that I won't be joining my mom after I die. What I did was cruel. It was horrible. I should have done what Mom wanted and spilled the beans beforehand instead of wasting the coworker's youth and childbearing years. Even if she could adopt, she'd probably die before her children were fully grown. Although, it is hard to have compassion and mercy for a woman who integrated herself into my mom's dying life while she was screwing my mom's husband. Our next Reddit post is from Heavy Victory. This story mainly revolves around a friend of mine, Kyle, and a former friend of his, James. Kyle's sister, Cassie, was also involved. Kyle is a great person. Extremely smart, aces every test, loves history, politics, and economics. He's a total nerd who aces every subject. Despite what you might think, he was not bullied for this. In fact, due to his generosity and intelligence, a lot of people thought that he would go far in life. James was similar to Kyle, but James was also very eccentric. Still, the two were nearly inseparable and were great friends. The two of them loved taking part in history competitions and academic competitions of any kind. Over the years, Kyle and James won many awards together. However, after a History Bowl competition that both of them attended together, their relationship started to fray. While they came in third place as a team, Kyle had come in first under individual rankings, while James came in at a distant seventh. Both positions received a trophy, so in total they received 3 trophies, one for the team, one for first, and one for seventh. As a courtesy, seeing that James had no space for the trophy that day, Kyle offered to take it back with him and return it during school. James obliged. Our school usually honors students who win outside events by calling them up on stage in front of the whole school and getting the director and the head of school to present the award to the students. As such, they did this for Kyle and James. However, on that day, James had an exam that he had to be in, and so he missed the presentation. Kyle received the awards on behalf of both of them, and he specifically took the microphone and mentioned that one of these awards belonged to James. But when James heard what had transpired, he was furious. He felt that the presentation should have been postponed, and he felt that Kyle did this on purpose. James felt even more justified when Kyle forgot to bring the trophies the next day to give it back to James. James went atomic on Kyle, calling him all sorts of names and effectively throwing their relationship in the garbage. Kyle felt hurt, but thought that was the end of it. No, that was not the end of it. James went around slandering Kyle's name behind his back. Everyone knew Kyle pretty well, so people didn't really take these rumors seriously. James got really pissed and started making Facebook posts and messaged Kyle's friends to slander his name further. Kyle's older sister, Cassie, got wind of this. She turned red with fury. She was school president and felt that it was her duty to protect the students. But if somebody messes with her brother, God save them. And that's what she did. Cassie cornered James one day and let him know in not so pleasant terms that he's messing with the wrong person and to stay away. For some reason, James suddenly took this to another level. James and his mom went to the police the next day and lodged a report against Kyle, Cassie, and their parents for slander and harassment. Then, James's mom called Kyle's mom and went Godzilla on her, boasting about how she's going to go to jail and that you're going to regret creating your 2 kids. Luckily, we live in a single consent state when it comes to making recordings, so I guess you know where this is going. Well, the police ended up throwing out James' case, citing a lack of evidence. You'd think that'd be the end of it. But no, James still kept going. James and his mom were properly pissed at this point. Nothing was going according to their plan. So they kept up their slander campaign, ramping up efforts on Facebook. I have no idea what they were thinking. While this was going on, James was running into trouble with the school's administration as well. You see, James was in the grade above us and was in the midst of applying to universities. As part of his application, he needed a school code to verify the application, but the school was delaying the handoff of this code to James. James had been severely abusing his mother's influence and connections to bend the school administration backwards, giving him better than predicted grades, which would be sent out to the universities. The teachers were pissed at this because they had spent countless evenings doing the predicted grades for all the students in the cohort. And here was a kid abusing his influence so that he could get an unfair advantage over others. Therefore, understandably, they delayed the handoff of the code. James got even more pissed. James wrote an email copying his mother, the director, and the head of school. He called the school's course coordinator a B-word who was too interested in serving others and that she wanted him to die, even though she had never said anything like that. This went too far for the school, who removed James from the list of graduates and blocked all contact with him and never sent him the code. This was in March, which will be pertinent later. It's important to note that, with the exception of James and the school administration, nobody had any idea that James wasn't going to graduate. And when graduation rolled around in August, he wasn't there, and we were surprised but relieved, and we thought that would be the end of it. Fast forward a few months to November. I was scrolling through Facebook when I saw that James had made a post with screenshots of the emails that he sent to the administrator. In this post, he was gloating about how he had played the administrator by apologizing to the administrator a month after sending those emails, and how they replied back with the school code just to get him out of their hair, and how now he has the upper hand and he was going to get into university. He wanted to show this to the world to see the school as it really is. What he didn't count on was me seeing this post. I quickly let Kyle know about the post. Kyle wanted to take revenge for the months of abuse and psychological harm his family had underwent. Thus, with my help, James gathered the evidence, including the phone call and screenshots of the email. Then, Kyle sent all this evidence into the university that had accepted James. This was the last straw for our school, which then officially expelled James, and then sent details of the entire event to all universities they were partnered with, which led to them canceling James' applications to their universities. Last we heard, James knew that it was us who did this, but he had no evidence to prove this. His university acceptance offers were retracted, and he's been unable to apply to any university in Europe and the US. That was r/Prorevenge, and if you like this content, check out my podcast where I publish the exact same episodes. Also, hit that subscribe button because I put out new Reddit videos every single day.